Joining us again for our weekly conversation on KWAT is South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. And Governor, it was a big week last week as you delivered your budget recommendations to the legislature. And you opened your speech by talking about the low unemployment rate in South Dakota. You mentioned that South Dakota has the strongest economy in America. Talk a little bit about what South Dakota has done to position itself in such a strong budget picture, and maybe why we can't replicate that at the federal level, where continuing resolutions seem to be the normal way of doing business these days.
Well, what's wonderful about South Dakota is that every year we propose a budget, we adopt and balance a budget, and we live within our means. Washington, D.C. just hasn't done that for so many years, and the debt and spending has escalated in a way that's unsustainable. So it would be wonderful if Washington would follow the same principles that South Dakota does. You know, we've got historic revenues coming into the state of South Dakota right now, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I think one of the reasons is some of the federal money that's been spent obviously is impacting the state and, you know, stimulated people's pocketbooks, but also agencies, departments, and different schools and entities. But beyond that, our sales tax revenues have been historic. Typically, we see our growth at about 5% every single year, and in 2021, our revenue growth was 15.75%, which is triple what it normally would be. And 2022 fiscal year looks to be another 11% above that. So, you know, it is, I think, telling our story, what a wonderful place we are to live and do business. Our low tax environment, our low regulatory environment. We've been telling that story, and people have been listening and coming here and helping our economy grow. So I'm proud of our state and our people, the fact that our economy is the strongest in the country. I think for the first time in many, many years, it's a wonderful thing that we can talk about the values we hold really do create opportunity.
It's certainly good news on the budget front, Governor, but you also sounded a bit of caution by saying that this should not be a celebration where bigger government is the result of all of this money that we have at our disposal. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's, you know, you watch what's happening in Washington as far as this White House is proposing higher taxes, which we know will leave people with less money to spend. They're putting in more regulations that are going to cost businesses more, driving up food prices, driving up gas prices. Some of the energy policies that they have already implemented have been extremely devastating to us, and we've seen inflationary rates higher than we've seen since the 80s. So I wanted South Dakota to know while we're doing very, very well and we're kind of the testimony to the rest of the country about conservative principles and how they really do help revenue growth, I think that we have to remember that we don't live in a bubble, that eventually what's happening outside the borders of South Dakota is going to affect us, and that we need to prepare for the future and make sure we're keeping our balance in our accounts steady and predictable and be reserved in how we spend our money into the future.
A lot like our personal finances, where we have savings accounts, the state also puts money away in reserve or in a rainy day fund, and you're proposing that the state save a pretty significant amount of money that would be put in budget reserves. Why is that important?
Well, it's preparing for that future. Typically, and every year, the state puts about 10% of its budget into reserve. Last year, we went above and beyond. I asked the legislature to put 12% in, and they did. This year, I'm asking them to put 14% into reserve. So that's into our savings account. For a couple of reasons. We want to have some extra dollars there in case we hit a recession, like a lot of economists are predicting in the country. But beyond that, we also know that we have issues at the Department of Corrections, that we've been addressing those problems for a while. But one of the problems is we need about $600 million worth of facilities to be built. And that's something that we obviously can't fully fund this year, but we can put extra money into savings, preparing to do those projects in the next few years. So we are going to spend probably $28 million building a women's work facility out in Rapid City so that we can give the women that are incarcerated some skills to get back into a job and get their life back under their feet. But beyond that, I think that $28 million plus ongoing costs that we're addressing within DOC. Beyond that, we're putting about $82 million into reserve that I would like the legislature to hold on to so that we can build those facilities in the next couple of years.
Who would get pay raises under the governor's proposed budget here, Christy, and why is it important that those folks be recognized with better pay?
Well, state government, teachers, and are really struggling to keep pace with industry. We also have providers that we're giving a 6% increase to, which will help them address workforce needs for taking care of people. But honestly, there's been a lag in pay and salary and benefits for those that are in the Department of Corrections, those that are in state government agencies, and we have many, many positions that we can't fill. So we're addressing inflation as well with that 6%. So it's a 6% across the board funding increase that would be targeted towards salaries, but there are some targeted jobs that will see bigger adjustments than that. We've got people that are far below what their counterparts are being paid in other jobs, and we need to keep pace with that so we can keep those positions filled and keep people taking care of each other.
You and I have talked in the past, Governor, about the workforce housing shortage in South Dakota, and you've got a pretty bold proposal on the table that would involve one-time state general fund monies that would be matched by local communities and developers. Can you talk about what your vision is for improving the housing situation in South Dakota?
Well, Mike, we've got a housing crunch everywhere in the state. It doesn't matter if you're in Sioux Falls or if you're in Britain, South Dakota, or you're in, Lake Norden or Castlewood. So everybody's got a need for workforce housing. And this isn't low income. These are the houses that would address those families that are getting up every day, going to work, that are struggling with middle income jobs, that just can't find a house they want to buy in some of these communities. So I put in my budget $150 million of state general funds that would go matched with $50 million that would partner with local communities to build, and developers to build these types of housing units in every community that's interested across the state of South Dakota. So with that $200 million coming from the state, and then the $200 million that would be required to match it by developers, and another $200 million from the local communities, we would see a $600 million benefit to this crisis that we're seeing in housing, and I think it'd be incredibly impacted. We've never had that big of an initiative, but that partnership makes it possible for the first time to really go after this problem that we have, and it'll fundamentally change the situation we have with high housing costs, families not being able to find homes, and then making sure that we don't drive the market crazy to where it dramatically impacts property taxes as well.
You're also proposing new dollars for the state's technical colleges. I know you're a big proponent of Lake Area Technical College here in Watertown. You come here every year and speak at the governor's luncheon very glowingly about the job that Lake Area Tech does in educating its students and keeping them in South Dakota working and raising families. LATC has a project on the drawing board. It's an archway project where state dollars would be matched by some fundraising from LATC. Can you talk about that project and why it's important that that be funded at least partially by the state?
Well, I think people hear archway and they think maybe it's just a decorative, project, but it's not. It's actual space that instruction can happen to meet some of our workforce challenges that we have in different programs. So incredibly important project. We also have a big project down at Mitchell Tech to build a facility that would do diesel mechanics year-round and that type of training that we see our agriculture industry and trucking industry rely so heavily on. So the total investment from the state in my budget that I've brought forward is $17 million into technical schools. And I hope everybody remembers all that we did last year, too. We paid down some debt. We did incredible amounts of money into equipment and training at our technical schools and did projects there as well. So, Lake Area has been recognized nationally for the outstanding job they do training our workforce. We want to make sure that we can keep that programs that they've got going there for these students, growing, facilitating, and feeding that industry where we have so many open jobs. You know, Mike, we've got about 800 people in the whole state that are on unemployment, but we've got 28,000 open jobs. So it's not that people are sitting home on unemployment, it's that they're working other jobs, but they don't have the skills to fill these jobs that we need filled, and that would allow us to streamline and build in efficiencies so that people can make a higher wage and have a better career.
You're a big fan, I know, Christy, of the South Dakota Department of Tourism and the work that Jim Hagan and his staff do in promoting South Dakota and marketing the state to outsiders. Your budget includes, I believe it was $35 million in marketing funds for the South Dakota Department of Tourism. I know that the tourism industry, through the pandemic, has been flourishing in South Dakota, and apparently you think there's more out there, and you'd like to attract even more folks to South Dakota.
Yeah, we really would. You know, we saw that marketing and telling our story has a big impact. It helps businesses grow. It helps our state budget. It helps local communities with sales tax growth. You know, that's what we needed in South Dakota, frankly, to keep everybody's taxes low. We need everybody out there thriving and having extra dollars they can spend on their families for vacations and necessities. So that's a big part of our plan for the future, is to grow our economy, and tourism has been a huge part of that. The $35 million would be used specifically to continue that work, but focus a lot on agritourism and to partner to really highlight some of our Native American tourism. So Sisseton up there and the tribe has some big plans for drawing people to the area. We'd like to partner with that community and that tribe to tell that story. Also, you know, some of our rural areas that have people that would like to invite individuals out to their ranches and experience the Western way of life, people that would like to highlight their farms and get folks off the interstate and out into their fields to see how their food is grown. That's a real interest that this country has right now, and we need to make sure that if people are interested in that they know we're here. And so those will be big initiatives that we will focus on in tourism, and then we'll use some of these dollars to really highlight the different jobs in South Dakota, too, to market. You know, you can come here and be a plumber, electrician, you know, be an engineer, be a doctor, and have a better quality of life than you can in New York City or Detroit, Michigan, or, you know, California. And people are looking for that right now. They're looking for a quality of life. They want to know that they can come here, though, and get a job and have a house. And part of the priorities we're addressing in this budget really would make sure that those are available to people.
Governor, what's in the budget to improve the daycare situation in South Dakota? Because you and I have talked in the past about working moms and dads who are having a tough time holding down steady employment for the sole reason that they're having a hard time finding people to watch their kids.
Yeah, it's very true. We have $100 million we're going to use for grants to daycare facilities to help them build buildings, do some type of expansion if necessary, maybe help them put in sprinkler systems or other things to do safety protocols to keep our kids safe, and that will drive down the cost per hour to those parents that are out there working. South Dakota has, I think the highest rate of working moms in the nation. If we're not the highest, we're 2 or 3. So in our state, you know, the vast majority of spouses, if there's 2 adults in the home, they're both working. And it's a real need that they have to have somewhere they can trust to have their kiddos spend part of the day, and making sure that we're providing that and partnering with businesses to build these facilities is going to be incredibly important in the future. So we don't want a long-term subsidy of daycare, and we certainly don't want the government providing daycare, but there's a way we can help these private businesses provide it for their employees that will make sure it's still affordable by the time the facility gets built.
We learned late last week, Governor, that your Secretary of the Department of Health, Kim Malsom-Risden, is going to be leaving for a job in the private sector. And gosh, during the last almost 2 years, in many ways, she's been the face and voice of South Dakota's fight against this COVID-19 pandemic. Just, if you can, speak to Kim Malsom-Risden, and I know you've worked with her extremely closely during this pandemic, what she has meant to you, your administration, and to South Dakota.
Oh, Kim is amazing, and she's worked for the state of South Dakota over 20 years and been in a leadership role for a very long time. She's going out into private industry. I'm excited for her. The last couple of years, no one could have predicted, but also we also know that Kim was outstanding. She kept her priority of taking care of people number one. She partnered with me very well for months and months on end, 24 hours a day, making decisions that would protect public health, but also get all the information in the hands of families that needed to figure out how their family should conduct their day-to-day lives. So I just can't thank Kim enough for her work. Nobody in state government the last 3 years has had a 40-hour-a-week job with all the workload of the programs that have been stood up, the flooding we had in 2019, the pandemic, what the National Guards had to do, what the Department of Health has had to do. Other agencies have deployed people in to help pick up the slack on when the government has audited us on federal dollars to make sure that it's done properly and correctly. It gets to be a lot, and it's a huge commitment. Nobody has been more dedicated to South Dakota throughout this pandemic than Kim has, and I'm excited for her. She's got a great opportunity, and I wish her well, and she'll still be helping us and be on speed dial as far as I'm concerned.
Sounds good. Finally, Governor, anyone who follows Governor Kristi Noem knows that you are a staunchly pro-life governor. And abortion rights have been in the news lately, including the Dobbs abortion case. Can you speak to that case and why it's important to you and the state of South Dakota?
Well, this Supreme Court case is extremely important. It may be the case that overturns Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortion in the country, and it is one that the Supreme Court case is from Missouri, but I wrote a brief in support of it. So South Dakota does have a component to what's being decided in front of the Supreme Court, and the fact that this brief that we wrote, I think there was over 200 women on there, was specifically addressing one of the decisions that this challenge is based on, that said that women couldn't be successful if they were mothers. And so many of us, wrote a brief to the Supreme Court refuting that, saying that you can be a mother and you can be successful and pursue your career and your dreams, and using our lives as a testimony that actually having a mom that's working and has initiatives and things that she's passionate about helps kids learn and gets them educated and keeps them involved as well, and in all the things around them that are impacting their daily lives. So proud to have that brief there, and when that decision comes down, it could be the case that protects every single life, whether born or unborn, but it also will be followed up by another case that is going before the Supreme Court shortly after, called Planned Parenthood versus Noem, and that's the South Dakota case as well. So this Dobbs case we're watching very closely, and in support of it, we also know that it won't be very long before South Dakota has our own Supreme Court case that they'll be deciding that also addresses eliminating abortion in this country.
Governor, as usual, thank you for your time today. It's always good to talk to you, and we will chat again soon.
Oh, thanks so much, Mike. Everybody have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon.